They say fear smells like sulfur and sweat, but in the polished marble halls of the St. James First National Bank, it smelled like expensive perfume and gunpowder. When 3 masked men with assault rifles seized control of the lobby, everyone screamed. Everyone except one man. A struggling single dad, holding his terrified son, didn't flinch. He didn't beg. He just checked his watch. Watching him from the corner was Isabella St. James, the ruthless Ice Queen CEO of the city's largest conglomerate. She thought she had seen power before. She was wrong. What this father did next didn't just save their lives. It broke the internet, destroyed a criminal empire, and led to a scandalous proposal that would leave the entire world gasping. This is the story of the dad who stayed calm, and the CEO who couldn't let him go. The rain in Seattle didn't wash things clean. It just made the grime slicker. Lucas Bennett adjusted the collar of his faded utility jacket, trying to shield the back of his neck from the drizzle. He looked down at the small hand gripping his own. Leo, his 6-year-old son, was dragging his feet, his oversized sneakers splashing in the puddles. "Dad, my feet are wet," Leo murmured, his voice thick with a coming cold. "I know, buddy. Almost there," Lucas said, his voice soft, a stark contrast to the rough stubble on his jaw and the weary shadows under his eyes. "Just one stop at the bank, then we go to the pharmacy, get you that cough syrup, and then home. I'll make grilled cheese." "With the crusts cut off?" "With the crusts cut off," Lucas promised. He checked his pocket. The letter was still there, crumpled, but heavy. Final notice. The landlord, Mr. Henderson, wasn't a bad man, but he was a businessman. Lucas had been 3 weeks late on rent since the construction site shut down due to regulatory issues. Regulatory issues didn't feed kids. Lucas steered Leo toward the revolving doors of the St. James First National Bank on 4th Avenue. It was a place that smelled of old money and new polish. Lucas didn't bank here. He didn't have enough money to justify the fees, but he had to cash a check from a freelance moving job he'd done for a wealthy client who insisted on using this specific branch. As they stepped inside, the silence hit them. It was the kind of quiet that cost money. High ceilings, marble floors that clicked under the heels of businessmen in Italian suits, and the soft hum of air conditioning that filtered out the city smog. Lucas felt the familiar prickle of eyes on him. He knew what they saw, a tall, broad-shouldered man in work boots and denim that had seen better days, holding the hand of a child wearing a coat that was slightly too small. They saw struggle. He pulled a ticket from the machine, number 402, and walked to the seating area. Sitting 3 rows away, thumbing through a stack of documents on a tablet, was a woman who looked like she owned the air everyone else was breathing. Isabella St. James. She wasn't just a CEO. She was an institution. At 32, she had taken over her father's empire, St. James Holdings, and tripled its value. The tabloids called her the Silver Siren because she was beautiful, sharp, and cold as steel. She was currently in the lobby of her own family's bank, not because she needed to withdraw cash, but because she was conducting a surprise audit of the branch manager's efficiency. She glanced up as Lucas sat down. Her blue eyes, sharp and assessing, swept over him. Work boots, mud, child, exhausted. She categorized him in a microsecond. Non-threat. Irrelevant. She went back to her tablet. "Dad," Leo whispered, climbing onto the chair next to Lucas. "That lady looks like a movie star." "Shh," Lucas smiled tiredly, brushing wet hair off Leo's forehead. "Don't stare, Leo. It's rude." "She's sad," Leo stated matter-of-factly. Lucas glanced at Isabella. He saw it too, the tension in her shoulders, the way she gripped the stylus of her tablet. It wasn't sadness exactly. It was the weight of a crown she never took off. But Lucas didn't have time to analyze billionaires. He just needed his $200 so he could buy medicine and food. The digital bell dinged. Number 400. 2 more. Lucas leaned back, closing his eyes for a second. He was a man who lived his life in a state of constant, low-level calculation. Rent is $1,200. I have $800. The check is $200. I can sell the tool set for $150. I'm still short. He was so deep in the math of survival that he almost missed the sound. It was a sound he hadn't heard in 5 years. Not since he left that life behind. And not since the desert. Not since he promised Leo's mother, on her deathbed, that he was done with violence. It was the distinct, metallic clack slide of a slide racking on a customized automatic rifle. Lucas's eyes snapped open. The calculation changed instantly. Rent, irrelevant. Food, irrelevant. Threat, imminent. He didn't gasp. He didn't look around wildly. He simply reached out, placed his large hand on the back of Leo's head, and gently pushed the boy's face into his chest. "Close your eyes, Leo," Lucas whispered. His voice was terrifyingly calm. "We're going to play the sleeping game." And then the glass of the front doors shattered. "Nobody move! Everybody down! Now!" The scream tore through the hush of the bank like a chainsaw. 3 men stormed through the shattered entrance. They wore tactical vests, black balaclavas, and carried military-grade assault rifles. This wasn't a desperate junkie holding up a teller with a rusty pistol. This was a crew. Professional. Precision. Chaos erupted. A woman near the teller line screamed. An elderly man dropped his cane. The security guard, a retired cop named Old Jerry, reached for his hip. But the lead robber, a massive figure known only as Alpha, was faster. He swung the butt of his rifle, connecting with Jerry's temple. Jerry went down hard, blood spraying the pristine floor. "I said down!" Alpha roared, firing a burst into the ceiling. Plaster rained down like snow. Silence returned, heavier and more suffocating than before. Isabella St. James had frozen. For all her corporate battles, for all the hostile takeovers she had survived, she had never looked down the barrel of a gun. She dropped to her knees slowly, her heart hammering against her ribs like a trapped bird. Her tablet clattered to the floor. She looked around, her instinct screaming for a way out. There was none. She was exposed in the middle of the waiting area. Then she saw him, the man in the work boots. While everyone else was sobbing, hyperventilating, or curled into fetal balls, Lucas Bennett was sitting on the floor, his back against a marble pillar. He had Leo tucked securely between his legs, shielding the boy's entire body with his own. But it was his face that caught Isabella's attention. He wasn't crying. He wasn't praying. He was scanning. His eyes, a dark, stormy grey, were moving with mechanical precision. He clocked the shooters. 3 visible, 1 likely at the door. Standard protocol. Weapons, modified AR-15S. Fingers on triggers? No. Indexing. They have training. Lucas checked his watch. 10:14 a.m. Police response time in this grid was 4 minutes for a silent alarm, 7 for a 911 call. "Dad!" Leo whimpered into his chest. "I'm here," Lucas murmured, his lips barely moving. "Don't look up. Just listen to my heartbeat. Count the beats, Leo, like we practiced." "You! The suit!" "Tut! Ah!" Alpha yelled, pointing his weapon at the branch manager, a trembling man named Mr. Finch. "Vault, now! You have 90 seconds before I start painting the walls with your customers." Mr. Finch couldn't move. He was paralyzed by terror. Alpha marched forward, raising his boot to kick the manager. Isabella, driven by a surge of adrenaline and authority she couldn't suppress, spoke up. "Leave him alone!" The room went deadly silent. Alpha turned slowly, his masked face tilting toward Isabella. He recognized her. Even under a mask, you could feel his grin. "Well, well," Alpha said, his voice distorted by the fabric. "Isabella St. James, we came for the gold bars in the safety deposit boxes, but it looks like we found the diamond." He walked toward her, the barrel of his rifle lowering until it was inches from her forehead. Isabella stopped breathing. The cold steel touched her skin. "Get up," Alpha commanded. "You're our insurance policy." "Hey." Isabella tried to stand, but her legs were jelly. She stumbled. Alpha growled and raised his hand to backhand her. "I wouldn't do that." The voice was low, gravelly, and carried a tone of authority that didn't belong to a man in dirty work clothes. Alpha froze. He turned his head. Lucas Bennett hadn't moved. He was still sitting, holding Leo. He hadn't shouted. He had spoken in a conversational tone, as if asking for the time. "Who said that?" Alpha hissed, swinging his weapon towards the seating area. "I did," Lucas said, finally looking up. His eyes locked onto the masked man. "You're on a timeline. You have about 3 minutes before the first sirens. Hitting her wastes 10 seconds. Dragging her wastes 20. And if you hurt a high-profile hostage, the police negotiation switches from containment to elimination. You know that." Isabella stared at Lucas. Who was this man? Alpha stepped closer to Lucas, looming over him. "You a cop?" "Just a dad," Lucas said evenly. "Just a dad who wants to go home. You're here for the vault. The manager has the key card. He's in shock. If you hit him, he passes out, and you get nothing. Let him breathe. He opens the door. You leave. Nobody gets hurt." It was a gamble, a massive one. Lucas was betting that these men were professionals who cared more about the money than the violence. Alpha stared at Lucas for a long, agonizing moment. The tension in the air was thick enough to choke on. The robber's finger twitched near the trigger. "You got a big mouth for a guy in the dirt," Alpha muttered. "I have a kid," Lucas said, his voice dropping an octave, becoming dangerous. "And you're waving a rifle around him. Point it somewhere else." It wasn't a request. Isabella watched, mesmerized. The air around Lucas seemed to warp. For a second, the handyman vanished, and something lethal took his place. Alpha laughed, a nervous, jagged sound. Or what? Lucas didn't answer. He just held the gaze. A predator recognizing another predator. "Alpha!" one of the other robbers shouted from the counter. "Time's ticking! The manager is moving!" Alpha broke eye contact, stepping back. "You're lucky, dirtbag." He turned back to Isabella. "You, stay put." He sprinted towards the vault. Lucas instantly exhaled, a long, controlled breath. He looked at Isabella. She was trembling violently now that the gun was gone. "Breathe," he mouthed to her. 3 seconds in, 3 seconds out." She nodded, tears pricking her eyes, and followed his rhythm. In the middle of a nightmare, this stranger was her anchor. The next 6 minutes were an eternity. The robbers cleaned out the safety deposit boxes. The sound of metal screeching and bags being zipped filled the room. Outside, the first sirens wailed, distant, but getting closer. "Police!" the lookout at the door shouted. "We got 2 cruisers pulling up! Exit plan!" Alpha screamed. "Grab the St. James woman! We take her with us!" Nuns. Isabella's blood ran cold. No, not that. Being taken as a hostage in a high-speed chase was a death sentence. Alpha sprinted back towards the seating area, reaching for Isabella's arm. "Up, now!" Isabella scrambled back, her heels slipping on the marble. "No!" she screamed. Alpha grabbed her hair. Lucas moved. It wasn't the cinematic explosion of motion you see in movies. It was efficient, ugly, fast. As Alpha yanked Isabella past Lucas, Lucas grabbed a heavy brass decorative vase from the side table next to him. In one fluid motion, he didn't throw it, he slammed it upward. But he didn't hit the robber. He hit the rifle. The impact knocked the barrel of the AR-15 towards the ceiling, just as Alpha's finger clenched in surprise. A burst of bullets shattered the chandelier above. In the confusion, Lucas surged up, not to fight, but to shield. He grabbed Isabella by the waist and threw her behind the thick marble pillar, diving on top of her and Leo. "Stay down!" Lucas roared. The other 2 robbers panicked and opened fire towards the seating area. Bullets chipped the marble, sending stone shrapnel flying. "Alpha, we gotta go! Leave her! SWAT is setting up!" Alpha, disoriented and realizing his weapon was jammed from the impact, looked at the chaos, then at the approaching sirens. The greed for the money outweighed the desire for the hostage. "Move! Back door! Go, go, go!" The robbers sprinted towards the rear exit, blowing the lock with a shotgun and disappearing into the alleyway where their getaway van waited. Silence returned to the bank, a dusty, smoky, ringing silence. Isabella lay on the cold floor. Pressed against her was the heavy, warm weight of the stranger. He was covering both her and the child, his body a human shield. She could feel his heart beating against her back. It was slow, steady. "Are they gone?" a small voice asked. Leo. Lucas lifted his head slowly, scanning the room. He checked the angles. Clear. He rolled off Isabella, sitting up and wincing. He touched his left shoulder. His hand came away red. A ricochet or a piece of marble had sliced his deltoid. "Dad, you're bleeding!" Leo cried, his eyes wide. "It's just a scratch, buddy." "Just a scratch," Lucas said, forcing a smile. He quickly zipped up his jacket to hide the blood. Isabella sat up, her Chanel suit ruined, her hair wild. She looked at Lucas with wide, shocked eyes. She had seen the security tapes of her own life. She knew nobody moved that fast. Nobody stayed that calm. "You," she stammered. "You saved me." Lucas was already standing, pulling Leo up. He looked at the shattered front doors where the police were now swarming in, weapons drawn. "Sir, ma'am, hands where we can see them," a SWAT officer screamed. Lucas raised his hands slowly. "Civilian, child present. We're clear." As the police took control of the scene, paramedics rushed in. The chaos of the aftermath began. Statements, triage, reporters gathering outside like vultures. Isabella was immediately surrounded by her security team, who had arrived seconds too late, and the police captain. "Miss St. James, are you injured? Do you need a medic?" "I'm fine," she said, waving them off, her eyes scanning the crowd. "Where is he?" "Who, ma'am?" The man with the boy. He was wounded." She pushed past the captain, looking around the lobby. She saw the paramedics treating old Jerry. She saw Mr. Finch crying in a corner, but the man in the utility jacket was gone. "Where did he go?" Isabella demanded of a nearby officer. "Who? The big guy?" The officer shrugged. He gave a quick statement, said his kid was sick and needed to get home. Declined medical attention. Said he didn't want to be on the news. Isabella ran to the shattered doors. The rain was falling harder now. She looked out into the grey wash of the city. There was no sign of him. No name, no number. Just the memory of a steady heartbeat and eyes that had seen war. She turned back to the bank lobby. A young man was holding a phone up. "Did you get it?" a reporter asked the kid. "Yeah," the kid said, eyes glued to his screen. "I was live streaming the whole time from under the desk. The guy, look at this, he stared down a gunman." Isabella snatched the phone from the kid's hand. On the screen, grainy but clear, was the moment. Lucas Bennett, calm as a monk, telling a killer with an assault rifle to lower his voice in front of his son. Isabella watched it. She felt a shiver go down her spine that had nothing to do with the cold. "Find him," she said to her head of security, a man named Roger. "Mom?" Isabella looked up, her blue eyes blazing with a new intensity. "I don't care what it costs. I don't care who he is. Find that man." By the time Lucas unlocked the door to his basement apartment in a crumbling complex on the south side of the city, he was trending in 14 countries. He didn't know it. He didn't have a Twitter account, and his phone was a cracked model, 3 versions behind the current tech, used only for calls and job hunting. He locked the door, 3 deadbolts, a habit he couldn't break, and let out a groan he had been suppressing for an hour. His left shoulder was throbbing with a hot, rhythmic pain. He peeled off his jacket. The white t-shirt underneath was stuck to his skin with dried blood. "Dad?" Leo asked, looking up from untying his shoes. "Are we safe now?" Lucas forced his face into a mask of calm. He knelt, wincing, and looked his son in the eye. "We are safe. The bad men are gone. And look." He pulled a small bottle of cherry-flavoured cough syrup from his pocket. He had shoplifted it. It was the first time in his life he had stolen. But after the bank closed down for the crime scene investigation, he couldn't cash the check. He wasn't going to let Leo cough through the night. "Medicine," Leo said, wrinkling his nose. "Then grilled cheese," Lucas bribed. As he cooked in the tiny kitchenette, the television in the corner, an old set the previous tenant had left, flickered with the evening news. "Viral sensation coming out of downtown Seattle today," the anchor announced. "A botched robbery at St. James First National has the internet buzzing, not about the thieves, but about this man." Lucas froze, spatula in hand. On the screen was the footage. It was shaky, filmed from under a desk, but the audio was crystal clear. "I have a kid. Point it somewhere else." The anchor continued. Dubbed the Iron Dad, social media is demanding to know, who is this mystery hero who stared down an AK-47 to protect his son and CEO Isabella St. James? Police say he left the scene before he could be identified. Lucas turned the TV off, his heart hammered against his ribs. Exposure. That was the one thing he couldn't afford. He wasn't running from the law. His record was clean, technically, but he was running from a past that had very long memories. The private military contractor he used to work for, Blackwood Global, didn't like it when their best operatives developed a conscience and walked away with secrets. "Eat up, Leo," Lucas said, his voice tight. "We might have to go visit Auntie Sarah in Portland for a few days." "But I have school," Leo protested. "School can wait." Lucas sat at the small, scratched table, staring at the eviction notice he had taped to the fridge. 48 hours. He needed money. Now he needed to run. It was a perfect storm of disaster. Meanwhile, 20 miles away in the penthouse suite of the St. James Tower, the atmosphere was electric. Isabella paced the floor of her living room, a space larger than Lucas's entire apartment building. The floor-to-ceiling windows offered a panoramic view of the rainy city, but she was looking at a massive monitor wall. "We have millions of views, Isabella," her PR manager, a frantic woman named Chloe, said. "The stock price actually went up 2 points. The narrative is that St. James Holdings is protected by heroes. But everyone is asking who he is. We need to control this. If he turns out to be a criminal or a fraud, the narrative flips." "He's not a fraud," Isabella said softly, rubbing her arm where Lucas had grabbed her. She could still feel the phantom pressure of his grip. It was the only time in 10 years she had felt completely safe. "Roger, report," Isabella snapped, turning to her head of security. Roger was a former NSA analyst, a man who could find a needle in a stack of needles. He was typing furiously on a laptop. "Facial recognition was tricky," Roger said, not looking up. He kept his head down, and the lighting was bad. "But I got a partial match on a military database from a declassified file." He hit a key. A picture popped up on the main screen. It was Lucas, younger, clean-shaven, wearing desert fatigues. He wasn't smiling. "Lucas Bennett," Roger read, "former Tier 1 operative. Specialization in extraction and high-risk protection. Discharged 5 years ago. Honorable discharge, but the details are redacted, heavily." "Special Forces?" Chloe asked. "That's gold, a war hero. It gets better, or worse, depending on how you look at it," Roger continued. "After the service, he worked for Blackwood Global. Private security. Mercenary work. He vanished off their payroll 2 years ago. Since then, he's a ghost. No credit cards, no loans. Pays cash. Works day labor. He's currently renting a basement unit in the District 9 slums." Isabella stared at the photo. "Why is a man with that skill set working day labor?" "Because he has a son," Roger said, pulling up another file. "Leo Bennett. Mother died in childbirth. Lucas has full custody. Looks like he quit the life to raise the kid. But he's struggling. Hard. I pulled his landlord's records. He's being evicted on Friday." Isabella felt a pang in her chest. The man who had saved her life, the man who had possessed the power of a king in that bank lobby, was about to be homeless. She remembered the look in his eyes. Calculation. He wasn't a brute. He was a strategist playing a losing game against poverty. "Chloe," Isabella said, her voice turning into the steel tone she used in boardrooms. "Draft a press release. Say we are looking for him to thank him. Keep it vague." "And you?" Roger asked. "What are you going to do?" Isabella grabbed her coat. "I'm going to go pay my debts." "Isabella, you can't go to District 9 at night. It's not safe," Roger warned. Isabella turned, her silhouette framed by the city lights. "I was in a bank robbery this morning, Roger. I think I can handle a conversation. Besides, bring the car and bring the contract." "Which contract?" "The one we prepared for the new chief of security, but double the salary." The knock on the door was polite but firm. Lucas was instantly awake. He had fallen asleep in the armchair, facing the door, a heavy wrench resting on his lap. He checked the time. 11:45 p.m. Landlords didn't knock at midnight. Police didn't knock politely. He moved silently to the door, checking the peephole. He stiffened. Standing in the dim, flickering hallway light of his basement corridor was Isabella St. James. She was flanked by 2 massive bodyguards, but she looked out of place, like a diamond dropped in the mud. She was wearing a trench coat that probably cost more than the building. Lucas unlocked the deadbolts. Clack, clack, clack. He opened the door a crack. "You're lost, Miss St. James." "I don't get lost, Mr. Bennett," she said, her voice calm, though her eyes were darting around the cramped, damp hallway. "May I come in?" "I don't think that's a good idea." "I know about the eviction," she said. Lucas froze. His grip on the door tightened until his knuckles turned white. "Is that a threat?" "It's a lifeline," she countered. "Please, 5 minutes. If you want me to leave after that, I will buy this building and give you the deed just so you can evict me." Lucas studied her face. He saw the same determination he had seen in the bank. He stepped back and opened the door. The apartment was clean, but sparse. A single mattress on the floor for him, a small bed for Leo behind a curtain, a table, 2 chairs, the smell of bleach and poverty. Isabella stepped in, her bodyguard staying in the hall. She looked around, her expression unreadable. She didn't sneer. She didn't pity. She just observed. "I didn't come here for charity," Lucas said, crossing his arms. The movement made him wince as his shoulder flared. "I know," Isabella said. She noticed the wince. "You never went to a doctor. Superglue and butterfly strips, it's fine." "You're an idiot," she said, but there was no heat in it. She reached into her bag and pulled out a tablet. "Lucas Bennett, ex-Special Ops, ex-Blackwood. You can kill a man with a credit card, yet you're scraping by moving furniture." "I made a promise to my son," Lucas said quietly. "No more guns. No more dangerous life. I want him to grow up knowing his father comes home every night." "And where will home be on Friday?" Isabella asked brutally. "Under a bridge?" Lucas looked away, his jaw working. She had him. "I have a proposition," Isabella said. She placed the tablet on the rickety table. "My board of directors is panicked. The robbery showed them I'm vulnerable. They want to hire a private security firm, Blackwood Global, actually, to manage my detail." Lucas's eyes narrowed. "You don't want Blackwood." "I know. They are sharks. If I let them in, they'll spy on me for my competitors. I need someone I can trust. Someone who isn't loyal to a paycheck, but to a code." "I'm retired," Lucas said. "I'm not asking you to go to war, Lucas. I'm asking you to be my personal protection detail. Just you, no teams, no Blackwood. I can't work the hours you work. I have Leo." "That's the second part," Isabella said. She took a breath. This was the crazy part. "The media is obsessed with us. They think we have a connection. If I hire you as a bodyguard, the press will hound us. They'll dig into your past. They'll find Blackwood. They'll find the secrets you're hiding." Lucas went rigid. "So you're blackmailing me?" "No, I'm offering you a cover," Isabella said. She stepped closer. The scent of her, expensive jasmine and rain, filled the small room. "The world wants a fairy tale. Let's give them one. You don't just come on as my bodyguard. You come on as my fiancé." Lucas blinked. "Excuse me?" "It solves everything," Isabella said, her mind racing as she pitched the idea she had formed in the car ride over. "If we are engaged, your constant presence is explained. The press won't dig into your military record. They'll focus on the romance. It protects your past. In exchange, you get a salary of $500,000 a year, full benefits, and the best schools for Leo. We live in my penthouse. You protect me from threats. I protect you from poverty. You want me to lie to the world. I want you to keep me safe," Isabella whispered. "Today, in that bank, for the first time in my life, I wasn't the one in charge, and I wasn't scared. Because of you, I need that, Lucas. I have enemies in my own company trying to oust me. I have competitors trying to ruin me. I need a shield." Lucas looked at the curtain where Leo was sleeping. He thought about the cold rain, the eviction notice, the empty fridge. Then he looked at Isabella. Under the power suit and the icy demeanor, he saw a woman who was just as cornered as he was. "Fake engagement," Lucas said slowly. "Strictly business." "Strictly business," Isabella nodded. 6 months. Then we break up amicably. You keep the money." Lucas looked at his hands. Rough, scarred, capable of violence he hated. Could he use them to protect her without losing himself? He looked at the tablet. The contract was already there. The number at the bottom was life-changing. "One condition," Lucas said. "Name it. Leo comes with me everywhere. I don't use nannies. I raise my son." "Agreed. I have plenty of room." Lucas picked up the stylus. He hesitated for a second, the weight of the decision pressing on him. He wasn't just signing a contract. He was stepping back into the arena. He signed. "Pack your things," Isabella said, letting out a breath she didn't know she was holding. "We leave tonight. It's not safe here." "I have 2 bags," Lucas said. "That's it. Then let's go." As Lucas went to wake Leo gently, Isabella looked around the apartment one last time. She pulled out her phone and sent a text to Roger. "He's in. Initiate Operation Cinderella." She didn't know it yet, but she had just invited a storm into her life. Lucas Bennett wasn't just a bodyguard, and the people who were hunting him hadn't forgotten him. The next morning, the world woke up to a picture that broke the internet. It wasn't the bank video. It was a photo taken by a paparazzi outside the St. James Tower at 2 a.m. It showed Isabella St. James, the Ice Queen, walking into her building, and walking beside her, carrying a sleeping boy in one arm and a duffel bag in the other, was the mystery hero. The headline read, "The Billionaire and the Bodyguard, a love story or a scandal?" Lucas woke up in a bed that cost more than his car. He looked out the window at the skyline. "Dad?" Leo mumbled from the pillow next to him. "Are we in heaven?" "No, buddy," Lucas said, watching a drone hover near the window, a camera lens zooming in. "We're in the spotlight." The transition from a damp basement in District 9 to the 45th floor of the St. James Tower was less like moving and more like being transported to a different planet. For Leo, it was a wonderland. The penthouse had heated floors, a refrigerator that seemed to restock itself, and a view of the Space Needle that made him press his nose against the glass for hours. But for Lucas, it was a tactical nightmare. Glass walls meant sniper lines. Private elevators meant choke points. The staff, maids, chefs, assistants, were all potential security leaks. On their 3rd morning, Lucas found Isabella in the kitchen. She was staring at a coffee machine that looked more complicated than the cockpit of a fighter jet, clutching a mug like it was a lifeline. "It's out of beans," Lucas said, leaning against the doorframe. He was wearing grey sweatpants and a black t-shirt that stretched tight across his chest, his holster already clipped to his waist. Isabella jumped. "I have 3 degrees, run a multi-billion-dollar conglomerate, and I cannot make this machine give me caffeine." Lucas walked over. He didn't touch the digital interface. He simply opened a side panel, tapped a canister, and pressed a manual override button. The machine whirred to life, the scent of fresh espresso filling the air. "Percussive maintenance," Lucas said, sliding the cup toward her. "Machines like to know who's boss." Isabella took a sip and sighed, her shoulders dropping an inch. "You're wearing a gun in my kitchen." "I wear a gun everywhere, Isabella. That's the deal." "We have the gala tonight," she said, her voice tightening. "The Winter Solstice Charity Ball. It's the biggest event of the season. Everyone will be there. The board, the competitors, the press." She looked at him, her blue eyes critical. "And you look like you're ready to invade a small country." "I am," Lucas said dryly. "But I assume you want me in a suit." "A tuxedo, a brioni. My stylist is coming at 10. And Lucas, we need to get our story straight. If Arthur Pendergast asks you where we met, what do you say?" "A coffee shop in Pike Place," Lucas recited, bored. "I spilled my latte on you. You yelled. I offered to pay for dry cleaning. Sparks flew." "It's cliché," Isabella muttered. "It's relatable," Lucas countered. "People don't want the truth. They don't want to know we met while a gunman was debating whether to execute us. They want the coffee shop." Isabella looked at him over the rim of her mug. For a moment, the business mask slipped. "Is that what you want? A relatable life?" Lucas looked at Leo, who was currently sliding across the polished floor in his socks, laughing. "I just want him to be safe," Lucas said. "And for the next 6 months, that means keeping you safe." The transformation was grueling. The stylist, a flamboyant man named Paolo, tisked and poked at Lucas for 2 hours. "Too much muscle here. Jacket will pull. Shoulders too broad. What do you feed this man? Raw iron?" When Lucas finally stepped out of the dressing room that evening, the room went quiet. The midnight blue tuxedo was tailored to within an inch of its life. It hid the holster under his left arm perfectly, but it didn't hide the power of his frame. With his hair trimmed and the stubble shaped into a deliberate shadow, he didn't look like a handyman anymore. He looked like 007's more dangerous brother. Isabella was waiting by the elevator. She wore a gown of silver silk that clung to her like liquid mercury, her back exposed. She looked up as Lucas approached, and her breath hitched. "Do I pass?" Lucas asked, adjusting his cuffs. Isabella swallowed. "You'll do." "Dad, you look like a spy," Leo yelled, running over in his pajamas. Lucas knelt, ignoring the creak of the expensive fabric, and hugged his son. "Be good for the nanny, Leo. I'll be back before you wake up." "Protect the princess," Leo whispered loudly. Isabella flushed. Lucas stood up, his face impassive, but his eyes amused. He offered his arm. "Shall we, Miss St. James?" "It's Isabella," she corrected, slipping her hand into the crook of his arm. Her skin was warm against his sleeve. "Tonight we have to sell it." The gala was held at the Rainier Club, a bastion of old Seattle money. As the limousine pulled up, the flashbulbs erupted like a strobe light storm. "Stay close," Lucas murmured, his eyes scanning the crowd. "Right side is clear. Move to the carpet." They stepped out. The noise was deafening. "Isabella, over here!" "Who is he? Is it true?" Lucas guided her with a hand on the small of her back. It was meant to be a romantic gesture, but Isabella could feel the tension in his fingers. He wasn't caressing her. He was steering her, shielding her. He positioned his body between her and the crowd at every angle. Inside, the ballroom was a sea of diamonds and champagne. Lucas felt the eyes on them, judging, calculating. "Isabella!" A booming voice cut through the music. Arthur Pendergast, a senior board member of St. James Holdings, waddled over. He was a man who looked like he was made of dough and malice. "Arthur," Isabella said, her smile not reaching her eyes. "So this is the mystery man," Arthur said, looking Lucas up and down with a sneer. "The hero of the hour. Tell me, Mr. Bennett, what line of work are you in? I heard a rumor you were in sanitation." It was a dig, a test. Lucas didn't blink. He took a sip of sparkling water. "Risk management, actually." "Risk management?" Arthur laughed. "For whom?" "Freelance," Lucas said calmly. I specialize in removing volatile elements before they cause structural damage. He took a step closer to Arthur, towering over him. I'm very good at cleaning up messes. The threat was subtle, but Arthur heard it. He paled slightly. I see, Arthur stammered. Well, welcome to the family, I suppose. As Arthur scurried away, Isabella squeezed Lucas's arm. Remind me to give you a bonus. He's afraid of you, Lucas noted. He's trying to undermine you because he thinks you're weak. I am not weak, Isabella said, her chin lifting. I know, Lucas said, looking down at her. I saw you in the bank. You didn't beg. You were ready to fight. That's why I'm here. The moment hung between them, charged and heavy. For the first time, the fake engagement felt dangerously real. The music slowed. Dance with me, Isabella whispered. The cameras are watching. Lucas took her hand. He moved with surprising grace for a big man. As they swayed to the music, Isabella rested her head on his shoulder. You smell like gunpowder and expensive soap, she murmured. Occupational hazard, he replied. Lucas, she said softly. Thank you, for Leo, for this. I know you hate it. I don't hate this part, he admitted, his hand tightening slightly on her waist. Then the spell broke. Lucas's phone buzzed, a specific triple vibration pattern. It was the burner phone he kept in his inner pocket, the one only 3 people in the world had the number for. He pulled back, his eyes instantly cold. He checked the screen. A single text message. We see you, Ghost. Nice tux. The boy is cute. Lucas stopped dead in the middle of the dance floor. Lucas, Isabella asked, alarmed by the look on his face. What is it? We're leaving, Lucas said. His voice was no longer the polite fiancé. It was the operator. Now. But the keynote speech. Isabella. Lucas grabbed her hand, his grip like iron. They know about Leo. The color drained from her face. Lucas dragged her through the crowd, ignoring the protests and the cameras. He spoke into his earpiece to the driver. Bring the car around back. Code red. I repeat, code red. As they burst out the rear exit into the rainy alley, the limousine was waiting. Lucas shoved Isabella inside and dove in after her. Go! He yelled at the driver. As the car screeched away, Lucas pulled his weapon, checking the chamber. Who? Isabella whispered, trembling. Who is it? Blackwood, Lucas said, staring out the rear window at the receding city lights. They didn't just find me. They were waiting for me to step into the light, and I just walked right onto their stage. The penthouse was on lockdown. Roger, the head of security, had his team sweeping every inch of the building. But Lucas wasn't relying on Roger. He was packing a bag. We can't stay here, Lucas said, throwing gear onto the bed. This building is a glass cage. If Blackwood wants in, they'll get in. They have cyber warfare capabilities that make your security system look like a Game Boy. Isabella was pacing, hugging her arms. Leo was asleep in the next room, unaware of the danger. Where do we go? She asked. I have a safe house in the Hamptons. Predictable, Lucas cut her off. They'll be watching the airports. We need to go somewhere they won't look, somewhere off the grid. I don't do off the grid, Lucas. My life is the grid. Well, tonight, your life depends on vanishing. He grabbed a burner laptop and a satchel of weapons he had retrieved from a hidden cache in the apartment's ventilation system, a habit he couldn't break. We're going to the cabin, Lucas said. What cabin? My grandfather's old hunting cabin in the Cascades. No internet, no cell service, just woods and snow. We leave in 10 minutes. Take the back service elevator. Wear sneakers. The drive was tense. Lucas drove a nondescript SUV he had borrowed from the garage, taking back roads, doubling back, and checking for tails. By the time they reached the cabin, it was 4 a.m. The structure was rough-hewn timber, buried in snow. It was freezing inside. Welcome to the Ritz, Lucas muttered, lighting a fire in the stone hearth. For 2 days, they lived in a strange limbo. The CEO of a Fortune 500 company, was chopping wood and heating beans over a fire. Lucas taught Leo how to identify animal tracks in the snow. Isabella watched them from the porch, wrapped in a wool blanket. She saw the way Lucas looked at his son, with a fierce, consuming love. And she saw the way he looked at the perimeter, with a cold, calculated lethality. She walked out to him as he was sharpening a hunting knife. "You're not just a bodyguard, are you?" she asked. Lucas paused. "I was a cleaner, Isabella. When the government had a problem they couldn't solve legally, they called Blackwood. And Blackwood sent me. I did bad things for bad people who told me they were good reasons. Why did you leave?" "Leo," Lucas said, looking at the boy playing in the snow. "I came home from a job one day, and I had blood on my boots. Leo was learning to crawl. He crawled toward me, and I realized I couldn't touch him. I was too dirty. I walked away the next day. Blackwood didn't like that. I know where the bodies are buried. And that's why they want you back. They want to silence me, and now that I'm with you, they think I'm vulnerable. They think I've gone soft." Lucas stood up, sheathing the knife. He looked at her, his grey eyes intense. "I haven't gone soft." He reached out, brushing a snowflake from her hair. The touch was gentle, electric. Isabella leaned into it. "Lucas!" He kissed her. It wasn't tentative. It was a claim, a desperation born of adrenaline and the quiet proximity of the last few weeks. Isabella kissed him back, her hands tangling in his coat. For a moment, the cold vanished. Crack! The sound echoed through the valley. Lucas broke the kiss instantly, shoving Isabella down into the snow. "Get down!" A bullet splintered the wood railing where her head had been a second ago. "Leo!" Lucas roared, scrambling toward the boy. Leo was freezing in the middle of the yard, staring at the tree line. 3 snowmobiles roared out of the forest, men in white tactical gear riding them. "Blackwood! Inside, now!" Lucas grabbed Leo, throwing him towards the door, and dragged Isabella up. They tumbled into the cabin as bullets shredded the windows. "Into the root cellar!" Lucas ordered, kicking aside a rug to reveal a trap door. "Go! Don't come out until I say!" "What are you going to do?" Isabella screamed, clutching Leo. Lucas pulled a customized assault rifle from under the floorboards. He looked at her, and a dark, terrifying calmness settled over his face. The dad was gone. The ghost was back. "I'm going to work." He slammed the trap door shut. Isabella huddled in the dark, damp cellar, holding Leo tight. Above them, hell broke loose. She heard shouting, the roar of gunfire, the sound of furniture shattering, then silence. Then the sound of heavy boots. "Clear," a voice said. But it wasn't Lucas. "Check the cellar," another voice commanded. "Alpha wants the woman alive. The kid is leverage." Isabella's heart stopped. She looked around for a weapon. A rusty shovel. It was nothing against guns. The trapdoor flew open. A masked man looked down, raising his pistol. "Found the—" Thwack! An axe buried itself in the man's chest. He fell backward. Lucas stood over the opening, his chest heaving, blood dripping from a cut on his forehead. He looked like a demon rising from the snow. "Close your eyes," Lucas said to Leo. He pulled Isabella and Leo out. The cabin was a wreck. 4 men lay on the floor, neutralized. "We have to move," Lucas said. That was just the scout team. The extraction chopper is 5 minutes out. "Lucas, you're bleeding," Isabella cried, seeing a dark stain on his side. "I'm fine. We're going to the snowmobiles." They raced outside. Lucas put Leo and Isabella on one machine. "You drive," Lucas said. "Head for the highway. Don't stop. What about you?" "I'm going to distract them." He straddled the second snowmobile and revved the engine. "No!" Isabella screamed. "I'm not leaving you." "If you don't go, Leo dies," Lucas yelled. "Go. I promise I'll find you." He slapped the back of her snowmobile. Isabella hit the throttle, tears blinding her, speeding away down the mountain path. She looked back once. She saw Lucas turn his machine toward the incoming helicopter that was cresting the ridge. He raised his rifle, driving straight at it. A hero, a father, a sacrifice, 2 days later, the St. James Tower was a fortress. Police were everywhere. The story was international news. Assassination attempt on CEO foiled by mystery fiancé. Isabella sat in her office, staring at the door. She hadn't slept. They had found the wreckage of the helicopter. They had found the snowmobiles. They had found the bodies of the Blackwood mercenaries. But they hadn't found Lucas. Miss St. James. Roger entered quietly. The police report is finalized. They're calling him a casualty. Isabella stood up. He's not dead. Isabella, the crash. He promised, she whispered. He promised he'd cut the crusts off the grilled cheese. He promised he'd come back. Leo was sitting on the sofa in the corner, holding a Lego spaceship. He wasn't crying. My dad is hiding, Leo said confidently. He's playing the sleeping game. The elevator dinged. The doors opened. He was limping. His arm was in a sling. His face was bruised, and he looked like he had walked through hell and back, but he was standing. Lucas Bennett. Isabella let out a choked sob and ran across the room. She didn't care about the staff, the police, or the dignity of her office. She slammed into him, burying her face in his chest. Lucas groaned in pain, but wrapped his good arm around her. I told you, he rasped, resting his chin on her head. I'm hard to kill. Dad! Leo rocketed into his legs. Lucas looked down, tears finally cutting tracks through the dirt on his face. Hey, buddy, did you keep the princess safe? Yes, Leo beamed. Lucas looked at Isabella. Blackwood is finished. I sent my insurance file to the FBI, the CIA, and the New York Times before I crashed that chopper. Their accounts are frozen. The CEO is in cuffs. We're free. Isabella pulled back, looking at his battered face. You idiot. You stupid, wonderful idiot. Does the job offer still stand? Lucas asked, a faint smirk playing on his lips. I might need a raise. Hazard pay. The job is gone, Isabella said. Lucas's face fell. Oh, I understand. The bodyguard position is terminated, Isabella said, wiping her eyes. However, I have an opening for a permanent partner. Benefits include half my assets, a very comfortable bed, and a lifetime supply of coffee beans. Lucas smiled, a genuine, warm smile that reached his eyes. And the grilled cheese? Negotiable. Lucas kissed her. It was the kiss that was broadcast on the evening news, the image that replaced the bank robbery footage. The CEO and the single dad, standing in the ruins of a corporate war, building something new. And that is how a trip to the bank for cough syrup turned a struggling single dad into a legend. Lucas Bennett proved that the most dangerous man in the room isn't the one with the loudest voice or the biggest gun. It's the father with a promise to keep. He didn't just save Isabella St. James. He saved himself. From the poverty line to the penthouse, Lucas and Leo finally found their home. And Isabella? She found the one thing money couldn't buy. Someone who would burn the world down just to keep her warm. What did you think of Lucas's decision to hide his past? Would you have done the same to protect your family? Let me know in the comments below. If you enjoyed this story of action, romance, and redemption, please smash that like button. Share this with a friend who loves a good twist, and don't forget to subscribe and ring the bell so you never miss a story. Thanks for watching, and see you in the next one.